Hello everybody, how are you feeling today? It's a bit cold outside, isn't it? I think it's time to snuggle up and have a story. Chapter 18, The Roly-Poly Bird to the Rescue. Mugglewump and his family longed to escape from the cage in Mr. Twit's garden and go back to the African jungle where they came from. They hated Mr. and Mrs. Twit for making their lives so miserable. They also hated them for what they did to the birds every Tuesday and Wednesday. "Fly away, birds," they used to shout, jumping about in the cage and waving their arms. "Don't sit on that big dead tree. It's just been smeared all over with sticky glue. Go and sit somewhere else." But these were English birds and they couldn't understand the weird African language the monkeys spoke. So they took no notice and went on using the big dead tree and getting caught for Mrs. Twit's bird pie. Then one day, a truly magnificent bird flew down out of the sky and landed on the monkey cage. "Good heavens!" cried all the monkeys together. "It's the Roly-Poly Bird! What on earth are you doing over here in England, Roly-Poly Bird?" Like the monkeys, the Roly-Poly Bird came from Africa and he spoke the same language as they did. "I've come for a holiday," said the Roly-Poly Bird. "I like to travel." He fluffed his marvellous coloured feathers and looked rather grandly at the monkeys. "For most people," he went on, "flying on holiday is very expensive, but I can fly anywhere in the world for nothing." "Do you know how to talk to these English birds?" Mugglewump asked him. "Of course I do," said the Roly-Poly Bird. "It's no good going to a country and not knowing the language." "Then we must hurry," said Mugglewump. "Today is Tuesday and over there you can already see the revolting Mr. Twit up the ladder painting sticky glue on all the branches of the big dead tree. This evening when the birds come in to roost, you must warn them not to perch on that tree or they will be made into bird pie." That evening, the Roly-Poly Bird flew round and round the big dead tree singing out, "There's sticky stick stuff all over the tree. If you land in the branches, you'll never get free. So fly away, stay up high, or you'll finish up tomorrow in a hot bird pie." No bird pie for Mr. Twit. The next morning, when Mr. Twit came out with his huge basket to snatch all the birds from the big dead tree, there wasn't a single one on it. They were all sitting on top of the monkey cage. The Roly-Poly Bird was there as well, and Mugglewump and his family were inside the cage, and the whole lot of them were laughing at Mr. Twit. Still no bird pie for Mr. Twit. Mr. Twit wasn't going to wait another week for his bird pie supper. He loved bird pie. It was his favourite meal. So that very same day he went after the birds again. This time he smeared all the top bars of the monkey cage with sticky glue, as well as the branches of the big dead tree. "Now I'll get you," he said, "whichever one you sit on." The monkeys crouched inside the cage watching all this, and later on when the Roly-Poly Bird came swooping in for an evening chat, they shouted, "Don't land on our cage, Roly-Poly Bird. It's covered in sticky glue, so is the tree." And that evening, as the sun went down and all the birds came in again to roost, the Roly-Poly Bird flew round and round the monkey cage and the big dead tree, singing out his warning. "There's sticky stuff now on the cage and the tree. If you land on either, you'll never get free. So fly away, stay up high, or you'll finish up tomorrow in a hot bird pie." Mr. and Mrs. Twit go off to buy guns. The next morning when Mr. Twit came out with his huge basket, not a single bird was sitting on either the monkey cage or the big dead tree. They were all perched happily on the roof of Mr. Twit's house. The Roly-Poly Bird was up there as well, and the monkeys were in the cage, and the whole lot of them were hooting with laughter at Mr. Twit. He doesn't look happy, does he? I'll wipe that silly laugh off your beaks, Mr. Twits screamed at the birds. I'll get you next time, you filthy, feathery frumps. I'll wring your necks, the whole lot of you, and have you bubbling in the pot for bird pie before this day is out. How are you going to do that? Asked Mrs. Twit, who had come out to see what all the noise was about. I won't have you smearing sticky glue all over the roof of our house. Mr. Twit got very excited. I've got a great idea, he cried. He didn't bother to keep his voice down because he didn't think the monkeys could understand. We'll both go into town right away and we'll each buy a gun, he shouted. How's that? Brilliant, cried Mrs. Twit, grinning and showing her long yellow teeth. We'll buy those big shotguns that spray out 50 bullets or more with each bang. Exactly, said Mr. Twit. Lock up the house while I go and make sure the monkeys are safely shut away. Mr. Twit went over to the monkey cage. Attention, he barked in his fearsome monkey trainer's voice. Upside down, all of you, and jump to it. One on top of the other. Quick! Get on with it or you'll feel Mrs. Twit's stick across your backsides. Obediently, the poor monkeys stood on their heads and clambered one on top of the other, with Mugglewump at the bottom and the smallest child at the very top. Now stay there till we come back, Mr. Twit ordered. Don't you dare move and don't overbalance. When we return in 2 or 3 hours' time, I shall expect to find you all in exactly the same position as you are now. Understand? With that, Mr. Twit marched away, Mrs. Twit with him, and the monkeys were left all alone with the birds. Mugglewump has an idea. As soon as Mr. and Mrs. Twit had disappeared down the road, the monkeys all flipped onto their feet right away. Quick, get the key, Mugglewump called out to the roly-poly bird, who was still sitting on the roof of the house. What key? Shouted the roly-poly bird. The key to the door of our cage, cried Mugglewump. It's hanging on a nail in the work shed. That's where he always puts it. The roly-poly bird flew down and came back with the key in his beak. Mugglewump reached a hand through the bars of the cage and took the key. He put it in the lock and turned it. The door opened. All 4 monkeys leapt out together. We're free, cried the 2 little ones. Where shall we go, Dad? Where shall we hide? Don't get excited, said Mugglewump. Calm down, everybody. Before we can escape from this beastly place, we have one very important thing to do. What? They asked him. We're going to turn those terrible twits upside down. We're going to do what? They cried. You must be joking, Dad. I'm not joking, Mugglewump said. We're going to turn both Mr. and Mrs. Twit upside down with their legs in the air. Don't be ridiculous, the roly-poly bird said. How can we possibly turn those 2 maggoty old monsters upside down? We can, cried Mugglewump. We are going to make them stand on their heads for hours and hours, perhaps forever. Let them see what it feels like for a change. How? Said the roly-poly bird. Just tell me how. Mugglewump laid his head on one side and a tiny twinkling little smile touched the corners of his mouth. Now and again, he said, but not very often. I have a brilliant idea. This is one of them. Follow me, my friends. Follow me. He scampered off towards the house, and the 3 of the monkeys and the roly-poly bird went after him. Buckets and paintbrushes, cried Mugglewump. That's what we want next. There are plenty in the work shed. Hurry up, everyone. Get a bucket and a paintbrush. Inside Mr. Twit's workshop, there was an enormous barrel of hug-tight sticky glue, the stuff he used for catching birds. Fill your buckets, Mugglewump ordered. We are now going into the big house. Mrs. Twit had hidden the key to the front door under the mat, and Mugglewump had seen her doing it, so it was easy for them to get in. In they went, all 4 monkeys with their buckets of sticky glue. Then came the roly-poly bird flying after them with a bucket in his beak and a brush in his claw. The great glue painting begins. This is the living room, announced Mugglewump, the grand and glorious living room where those two fearful, frumptious freaks eat bird pie every week for supper. Please don't mention bird pie again, said the roly-poly bird. It gives me the shudders. We mustn't waste time, cried Mugglewump. Hurry up, hurry up. Now the first thing is this. I want everyone to paint sticky glue all over the ceiling. Cover it all. Smear it in every corner. Over the ceiling, they cried. Why the ceiling? Never mind why, shouted Mugglewump. Just do as you're told and don't argue. But how do we get up there, they asked. We can't reach. Monkeys can reach anywhere, shouted Mugglewump. He was in a frenzy of excitement, now waving his paintbrush and his bucket and leaping about all over the room. Come on, come on. Jump on the table, stand on the chairs, hop on each other's shoulders. Roly-poly can do it flying. Don't stand there gaping. We have to hurry. Don't you understand that? Those terrible twits will be back any moment, and this time they'll have guns. Get on with it, for heaven's sake. Get on with it. And so the great glue painting of the ceiling began. All the other birds who had been sitting on the roof flew in to help, carrying their paintbrushes in their claws and beaks. There were buzzards, magpies, rooks, ravens, and many more. Everyone was splashing away like mad, and with so many helpers, the job was soon finished. I wonder what they're going to do now they've painted the ceiling with glue. Maybe you can have a think and let me know. Bye, everyone.